I'm being joined by one man who stepped down for Peter Obi in the Labour Party, Professor Pat Utomi. He joins us live in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us.
Great pleasure to be with you.
How do you feel? The man you stepped down for now has gotten a lot of steam behind him. Chief Adebanjo has thrown the weight of Afenifere behind him. You're thinking that you made the right choice, isn't it?
I expected this to happen. It was not a wild choice. It was a deliberate thing. Just think of my politics. Look at Nigerian history and look at how I've played. First, ethnicity has mattered very little in my politics. I mean, yes, I came into public view in a broad sense during the Shagari administration. But one of the things that threw me into public consciousness was the June 12 crisis. I'm not a Yoruba man, but I led the charge in many ways during that great struggle in Nigeria with the concerned professionals and all of that. It's because there's a practical sense in my politics for what's right, what's fair, and what advances the common good of all. In looking at the way political parties are structured, again, I'm a social scientist by education and by passion. Understanding in a systematic way man in society is my calling. I have been close to the founding of political parties. I was around since I was very close to Dr. Alex Ekweme. Even as concerned professionals, we had decided not to go into politics in 1998. But I was around with Dr. Ekweme at meetings. So I was there at the founding of the PDP. I was there at the founding when I saw that the PDP was not going to take Nigeria where it should go. I was there at the founding of the APC. And then I saw that that was disaster in the making. And I began to ask myself, why? What's going on? And my social scientist brain, in examining things, came to a simple conclusion. You know, in structural economics, there is a paradigm called the structure, conduct, performance paradigm. Structure, whether it's an industry or whatever, usually affects conduct, the behavior of the players within that space, their values, everything. Depending on how strong or weak the institutions are, they result in outcomes. It became clear to me that the nature of the structure of the APC and the PDP was such that it was about transactions. You give, I take, and it was all really about self. No ability to throw up leadership that sees Nigeria where it's going and works to deliver Nigeria in that direction. It's about who gets what, who shares what. That's why production fell off the shelf and got substituted with sharing. So sharing became so obsessive that many who were sharing did not realize that they were reducing their own possibilities in the sharing, because no country has grown rich from sharing, it's grown rich from production. And I can go back through history and look at the experience of Spain when the conquistadores were shipping back gold from Latin America and all of that. And people of Spain were sharing. Their neighbors who were much poorer, Netherlands, Switzerland of this world, invested in their young people to produce. In the end, Spain became a much poorer country than the Netherlands.
Similarly,
so the nature of the
Nigeria
PDP,
has been sharing, Ghana has been producing, Cote d'Ivoire has been producing, Rwanda has been producing.
That the nature of the PDP and the APC is about sharing, and that guarantees that Nigeria will fail as a country. So some
people will say that that foundation was laid. I mean, when we entered into this,
it came out of military rule. It came out of military rule, but we then hardened it. Nigeria was a producing country in the 50s and 60s. What defined it? We talk about structure and conduct. The structure of Nigeria's federal arrangement in the 50s and early 60s led to conduct, which the American political scientists Robert Melton and Howard Wolpe essentially referred to as a state of national ethnic communities struggling for who will most bring progress to their people. This kind of competitive communalism, as they called it, led to growth spots. So Chobafemi Olo starts an industrial estate in Ikeja. Boom, Okpara follows with Aba and Port Harcourt and Transamadi. The Sardauna follows with Kakuri in Kaduna. That kind of competitive spirit drove the ascendancy of production. When military rule came, soldiers, oil came together, it led to a new culture of transactions of my share, which Richard Joseph calls bureaucratic prebendalism. Constitution became just the way, production fell off this thing. So by the time we got to the new civilian regime of 99, it was a strong part of culture. I was clear in my head that the only way we could make progress is to break this, to disrupt. That's why I began to work on this idea of a third force.
All right. Now, the third force, the big tent, and the idea of shadow cabinet, these are some of the things that you and your friends have been working on. But it looks like it's culminating in the Peter Obi and the obedient
revolution.
Now, is it a revolution?
It's a revolution.
Okay. I mean, if you call it that, I mean, I see it as a rave right now. Whether or not, how much of a revolution it is, will be tested at the poll. The question people will ask is, we see this more on the lips of, or hear it more on the lips of the elites and the middle class and the upper class on social media. How much of the structure on the ground, because that is what matters. The question is that, Professor Utomi, how much of the structure does the Labour Party has, or your friends?
Super structure. Much better than the structures, quote unquote, that the APC and PDP have. You see, the media creates these stereotypes. What is structure? Here is structure for you. The Labour Party, as it currently is built around the labor movement and a college of civil society organizations. What is the labor movement? The Nigeria Labour Congress and TUC have in every state of the federation political commissions. I had the privilege of speaking about 3 months ago in Abuja here to the 36 political commissions of the NLC. If there is structure in Nigeria, that is structure. It has going for it several organizations that have been built essentially all the way to the grassroots. Why people say structure matters is because Nigerian elections are usually based on rigging, and if you don't have a lot of money, which is usually taken from the treasury, and these are people who are committing serious crimes, and Nigeria is allowed to get away with it, take public money to run political parties. But anyway, let's leave that aside for now. The people who then come from being funded from the treasury are present. The small parties don't have anybody, but that has changed. With the structure that we have, I am guaranteeing that on election day, in every polling station in this country, there will be at least 15 people who are standing up for the third force, who are going to be supporting the Labour candidate.
Let me ask now, is Labour Party still planning on merging or working with other political parties?
It's working. It's working with other political parties.
Like what party?
Because of several political parties, you know.
Because I see that other political parties have their own presidential candidates.
They're expected to have.
So, I mean, what form and what shape are you working together?
I mean, people know that their candidates will not make much of an impact. They are part of a collective. We are talking about a college of leaders led by the Labour candidate. And this college of leaders will come from parties, whether they be PRP, APC, so many of them, SDP, all of those are going to work together. I can assure you. I mean,
in what manner? Because I mean, I'm trying to ask practical questions now. So you are trying to convince me that there is a structure of, I mean, using the labor union and the members of the labor across the country, giving
using faith organizations, Christian and Muslim. All these are structured.
Those will be tested because the major political parties over the years have built practical political presence.
No, they've built rent networks of people who are bribed from government treasury.
They win elections.
Those people don't live in Nigeria, and they know that the parties have made a mess of Nigeria.
I'm asking this question on behalf of some of your supporters, and those who are not supporting you, who are wondering how you want to play that game or how you want to win election in the first place. What gives you the confidence that the Labour Party or Peter Obi can win election?
Let me tell you what gives me confidence.
Election?
First of all, APC and PDP have brought Nigeria down to base. Nigeria technically is bankrupt. Next year, all the borrowings will not help it. It won't be able to pay due amortization on the debt it's gotten into. Secondly, and by the way, the only thing that will get this out is a new confidence in Nigeria that will lead to new investments and the kind of resources that will lead to our beginning to grow again. And the world out there is not ready to give Nigeria a line on the kinds of leadership that we have currently. They'll be looking for something new. So the only hope we have of turning this around is a new kind of leadership that's focused on production, that's focused on the people, because the current transaction arrangement that we have of trading off, you get this ministry, you get that ministry. Totally incompetent people go into ministries because they've traded off positions.
So you are. I mean, what are you saying to Nigerians?
What I'm saying to Nigerians,
that Labour Party would defeat APC, PDP?
Absolutely, because Nigerians are not stupid. They realize that Nigeria is at a dead end, that they need new thinking to be able to get out of where Nigeria is.
Let me ask you this question, Prof. And I know that you're a very good friend with Bola Tinubu.
All the candidates are good friends of mine.
No, I know that you have a special friend in Bola Tinubu.
I knew Atiku Abubakar before I knew Bola Tinubu. Since 1982, I wrote the feasibility for Atiku Abubakar's farm, the loan in 1983. So I know all the candidates well, including Senator Kwankwaso. So they're all friends of mine.
Great. Now,
what matters here is the future of Nigeria.
Now, the question now is Bola Tinubu and the appearing of Senator Kashim Shettima. That has generated a lot of controversy. So people will ask the question, what does religion matter anyways? I mean, competency is what matters. What are your thoughts?
Well, competency is what matters, huh? But in any organizational arrangement, people feel more comfortable when they feel that their sentiments are represented in how choice is made. Look, and I hate to keep playing the academic, I go back. The book that defines all of this was written in 1948 by a guy called Thomas Kingsley. The book is titled Representative Bureaucracy. And Kingsley advanced the argument, which is what led us to affirmative action. Nobody has complained loudly. I mean, people are unhappy about the way we've implemented it, but nobody has complained about the concept of federal character. That concept comes from the affirmative action movement, which comes from that writing by Thomas Kingsley, that when a leadership, a bureaucracy, does not have the sentiments of those who constitute those they service in the structure, then it underperforms relative to the interests of those people. This is why affirmative action came along. So, capacity matters. But if you take a whole population of a country, a significant part of the population of the country, who have this sentiment, which is Christian, and there is a national kind of consensus that it is best for us to make everybody feel welcome. You know, there's a famous saying, which Lyndon Baines Johnson, as President of the United States, is known for, but which Mahathir Mohamad, as Prime Minister of Malaysia, used to galvanize Malaysia. He said, it is better for everybody to be inside the house, pissing out, than for some people to be outside the house, pissing into the house. That house will smell. But if everybody is in the house, they feel represented, Christians, Muslims, and the peeing is going out of the house, that house will be more in order.
What's the consequence of a Muslim ticket in Nigeria of today? If in 1993, it didn't matter, why does it matter in 2023? You
have to bear a number of things in mind, circumstance. First of all, Nigeria has become much more polarized since 1993. Secondly, the personality of Chief MKO Abiola, completely different from those that play today. And I give you a classic example, personal, very personal. In 1991, I think summer of 1991, I arrived in London. I'd been on assignment in the UK. My family was living in London, and one of my daughters was born. And Chief Abiola arrived London on his way to Caracas in Venezuela for the G20 meeting, and said he'd like to see me on his return into London. And I said, fine, no problem. He called me from his car and said he would like to see me. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, this afternoon is not good because my daughter is about to be baptized in a church in Bayswater. He said, what church is that? I said, Mary of the Angels or something in Bayswater. He said, I'm going to Paris this evening. Okay, when I come back tomorrow, I'll talk with you. And I got up to read the lesson in this Catholic church. In the middle of the church was Chief MK Abiola sitting there. So there's a complete difference in the personality of Chief MK Abiola and the people who have played politics of division with religion in the last. So you have to bear that in mind when you consider that.
So, I mean, for today's Nigeria, a Muslim ticket will not fly. Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to talk about what will fly or not fly, but I'm saying as a social scientist who studied these things, that it will put off. You're talking about Trump and all of that. You should go and read a couple of books that have been written about this. Two Harvard professors, Levitsky and Ziblatt, have written one, Is This How Democracies Die? Or Is This How Democracy Dies? A Cambridge professor, David Runciman, has written of a very similar title. I think is This How Democracies End? Something similar. And they essentially talk about the Trump phenomenon. Even more important, a read on that subject. To work out of Harvard Center for Moral Cognition, Joshua Green, who's the director, has written a book titled Moral Tribes, Emotion, Reason, and the Gap Between Them and Us. Donald Trump played very assiduously, very smartly, but unfortunately for the American democratic system, emotions over reason. Mm-hmm. And again, sorry, as an academic, I will go back. One of the best conversations around democracy is offered by the German philosopher Jürgen Habermas. And Habermas essentially describes modernity and democracy as rational public conversation. Donald Trump stood rational conversation on its head in creating an emotional context of an America and damaged American democracy significantly.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's the model you want to begin to recommend to Nigerians.
All right, Prof, I'd like to show you what some members of the APC in the North, and these are Christian leaders, and this state a communique after their meeting yesterday, they've released and speaking out against the position of the presidential candidate, and of course, the pairing of Bola Tinubu and Shettima. What is the implication of this sort of thing, the Muslim ticket, for Nigeria and going forward? Can this shape the kind of politics or the kind of governance that we're looking forward to in Nigeria?
Again, we've talked about government or politics being about consensus building. Nigeria is trapped where it is because we don't have elite consensus. It's important for us to create elite consensus on our economy, on what is accepted in social behavior. This is what eventually leads any society to making progress. That choices are made that deepen cleavages rather than bring us closer together is regrettable. But those who have made the choices are the ones who have the obligation to explaining why they make those choices. What I can say is that this is going to perhaps do something that most people don't quite often refer to. The fact that northern Nigeria is not a monolith. Okay, I can tell you a great statesman now of blessed memory, great statesman of northern origin, Fulani, I don't know if it's proper to mention his name now, said to me before he passed away about a year ago, he said, you Southerners don't understand why we are so fastidious in the North about Nigerian unity. He says, in the South, you can trace a Yoruba nation. It's there, you can see it clearly. You can trace an Igbo nation. You can even trace an Ijaw nation, and so on and so forth. He says, in Northern Nigeria, it's not like that. says, of the 19 northern states, I'm quoting him, only 5 have contiguous populations that can live together. The rest of them is war without end. There are many ethnic minorities in northern Nigeria. There has been an umbrella that has kind of strung things slightly together. Once we go the way that some people are unfortunately going, the pressure to break that up will be very obvious.
All right.
And you'll see it in voting patterns, which might not be good ultimately for Nigeria's
Prof,
stability.
we'll have to anchor here, but thank you so much, Prof. But we need to get you back because we're talking about shadow cabinet and how this big tent.
Yes,
and so
it's
forth. But
particularly important that we are, reconstituting the shadow cabinet and having specific assignments to show Nigerians what the government can do outside of power.
all right. I wish you and your friends the very best, and may the best man win for the interest of Nigeria.
Nigeria is what matters.
Absolutely. I don't care what anybody thinks. What matters to me, and most of those who have Nigeria at heart, is Nigeria, Nigeria, and Nigeria. Thanks so much, Professor Pat Tony.